الحرام ولا الهدي ولا القلائد ولا آمين البيت الحرام ولا آمين البيت الحرام يبتغون فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا وإذا حللتم فاصطادوا ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. صدق الله مولانا العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu wa Manwaluhu says, Ya Ayah, O Alladhina, those people, Amanu who believe, Awfu bil Uqud, keep your promise, fulfill your promise. Fulfillat was validated, was made known. Lakum for you, Bahimatul An'ami, the cattle-like animals, Bahimatul An'am, cattle-like animals, illa with the exception of ma what yutla would be recited alaykum to you, would be told to you, be recited to you. Ghayra muhilli as-sayd, when you are not allowed to believe lawful for you, the hunting means you are not allowed to believe hunting is lawful for you. وَأَنْتُمْ حُرُمْ, when you are in the situation, condition of ihram. Inna verily Allah Yahkumu orders, decides, enjoins, ma yurid, whatever He pleases. O people who believe, keep your promises, fulfill your promises. Cattle-like animals were validated for you, were made love for you, with the exception of those which would be recited to you, would be told to you, and you should not believe the hunting love for you when you are in the condition of ihram. Means when you are bearing the garb of pilgrimage, when you are bearing, when you are putting on the garb of the the dress of the pilgrims. Inna Allah yahkum ma yurid. Verily Allah orders, enjoins whatever He likes, whatever He pleases. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O believers, la tuhillu, don't believe lawful for you. Sha'irallahi, emblems, eminences, the symbols of Allah. Sha'ir is plural number of Sha'ar or Sha'ira, means symbol, sign. The proper word for it is eminences. Eminences are emblems. E-M-B-L-E-M-S, emblems. وَلَشَّعْرَ الْحَرَامِ, and not the months of respectable months. And you are not allowed to make love for you the respectable months. Walal hadiya, and not the sacrifices sent to the Haram Sharif, to Baitullah Sharif. The sacrifices which are sent to Baitullah Sharif are termed as hadi. The common sacrifices, qurbani, is called dahiyya. But the sacrifices sent to Mecca Sharif with the intention of being sacrificed in altar of Mina Sharif are termed as al-hadi. Al-hadi, sacrifices sent to Mina Sharif, sent to Mecca Sharif. Walal qalaida, and not the colored sacrifices. I shall explain afterwards. Qalaid, and not the colored sacrifices. Wala amil al-bayt al-haram, and not the people going to the bed of the house of respect in Baitullah Sharif. In the pilgrims. Yabtahu, when they are searching for fadlan, bounty, min rabbihim, of their Lord, waridwana, and ghayrus. O believers, don't make lawful the eminences, the emblems of Allah, the symbols of Allah, and don't disrespect the respectable ones, and don't disturb the sacrifices sent for Mecca Sharif, and not the sacrifices with collared sacrifices, and don't disturb the pilgrims going to Baitullah Sharif, who are searching for the bounties and blessings of Allah and His pleasure. Wow, and Iza, when halaltum, you come out of ihram, when you put off the garb of ihram, first time you are allowed to hunt. This is imperative tense, but sometimes imperative tense is just for permissibility. This is for permissibility. Means you are allowed to hunt. It is not command that you should allow, but it is that just permission for permissibility. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ, and let not the enmity of a community, enmity of the people who prevented you, ansaddukum, prevented you, or barred you, or restrained you, anil masjid al-haram, from the respectable mosque, and incite you to transgress means let not the enmity of the community, the enmity of the people who barred you, who prevented you from the respect of the mosque, incite you to transgress, to exceed the limits. وَتَعَاوَنُوا and cooperate على البر in connection with the virtue, وَالتَّقْوَى and piety. وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا and don't cooperate على الإثم in connection with the sin, and وَالْعُدْوَانِ and transgression, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ and fear God. Inna verily Allah Rabbul Izzat Shadid al-Iqab is very severe in the penalty, in the retribution, in the chastisement. And when you come out of Ihram, when you put off the garb of Ihram, you are allowed to hunt. And the enmity of a community who barred you, who prevented you from the respect of mosque, should not let you incite so much so to transgress and cooperate in connection with virtue and piety, and don't cooperate in connection with the sin and transgression, and fear God. Verily, Allah is severe in punishment. This is the verbal translation of this surah. First of all, I would like to explain the background of its revelation. According to the survey of the surah and contents of the surah, one can come to the conclusion that it began to be revealed just after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah Sharif, when our Holy Prophet intended to visit Kaaba Sharif with the intention of Umrah, along with 1,400 companions. And there was a custom, it was a customary law, that nobody was allowed to prevent the pilgriming people, the visiting people to the Kaaba Sharif. The person going to Kaaba Sharif was not valid to be prevented. Everybody was allowed to go there at any time. All of the enemies and all of the clashes and contradictions and conflictions were not able to prevent a person from the visit of Kaaba Sharif. According to that law, the Muslims were believing that they would be able to visit Kaaba Sharif without any let and hindrance. So when they reached Hudaybiyah, Hudaybiyah is a place very near to Mecca Sharif, and they were prevented by the Mushrik army, and they threatened them to fight. And since the person who goes to Mecca Sharif goes empty-handed because he doesn't want to fight with anyone, therefore he is always empty-handed, and they were armed with deadly weapons of that time. Therefore they had to a long negotiation. After a long negotiation, they came to a treaty which was written by both the parties and was agreed at. Because many issues were discussed in the surah about that treaty, which indicates that it began to be revealed after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah Sharif, and continued to be revealed up to the last time of the Holy Prophet. Because Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum wa Atmamtu Alaykum Ni'mati Medina was reported to have been revealed at ninth day of Zilhajjah at the place of Arafat city. And it was performed by the Holy Prophet himself in the 10th year of Hijrah. So it can be concluded that it began to be revealed just after the month of Zilqa'dah, 6 AH, and it ended up to the end of 10th year of Hijrah. It continued to be revealed for about more than 4 years. So one can easily conclude that it was a conversation of Allah, it was discourse of Allah. Otherwise, arrangement of such a scattered issues cannot be logically arranged. And in so much long time, the logical order cannot be maintained. One starts to write a letter one day, the other day, the next day, the coming day. After a few days, he is mostly disconnected from the previous thoughts. And there is no logical relation between the previous thoughts and the new thoughts. But one can easily think that it can be only the quality of divine conversation, divine discourse, that so much long conversation could not be scattered, could not be dispersed. But it was logically and academically and very nicely and eloquently and rhetorically it was arranged, and its arrangement is linguistically very nice and matchless. And in respect with this order and this nobility and this quality, it has been challenged. فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. If you are at times, if you are true to say that it was not revealed by Allah, you are challenged to introduce 3 sentences comparable with any 3 sentences of the Holy Quran. But this challenge remained unanswered up to this time, which is a conclusive proof that it was revealed by Allah. You can imagine the length of the surah, the contents of the surah, the meanings of the surah, and many civil laws, many criminal laws, many personal laws, many matrimonial laws, and conjugal rights, and law of maintenance, and restitution of conjugal rights, and many other issues, and many other international issues were also discussed in the surah. All the lawyers are surprised to see the nobility and fluency of this surah. It goes very fluently to the target, and it never misses any type of question which is really relevant with the subject. But in spite of the fact, now pinpoints can be referred to in this surah. So, therefore, it is very noble quality of this order and this arrangement and this logical statement. And this is the occasion of revelation of the surah. But as far as its contents are concerned, they are relevant with the different types of issues. For instance, when the Muslims migrated from Mecca, they were refugees. A majority of them were slaves. They were very poor. And they were subjugated by the non-Muslims. And they were unable to lead their lives, to enjoy the freedom. But now the Muslims had originated their independent state. In those days, Medina Tayyibah was a capital of Muslim state. The Muslim state had formulated the civil law, the criminal law, the matrimonial law, the law of maintenance, the law of guardianship, code and guard, and the revenue, law of revenue, law of land. Many reformed and many newly introduced laws were also implemented by the Holy Prophet, and many other things about the adjoining and surrounding tribes and claims were also made. In those days, the Muslims were ordered not to disturb the pilgrims because a large number of the infidels were supposed to visit Kaaba Sharif through the lands of the Muslims. The Muslims were easily competent to disturb them, to kill them, to prevent them. In the previous days, the question of safety of Muslims was discussed. But nowadays, the Muslims were directed not to disturb the people. Because nowadays, in those days, the Muslims had got the power. The Islamic law was prevailing in the prescribed area of Islam. The Muslims were able to practice according to the demands of Islamic spirit, and they were enjoying the freedom. And independence was in the control of the Muslims. Nowadays, the Muslims were directed how to utilize the power, how to maintain the peace, how to treat the non-Muslims. So this was a time for a practical exercise of the power. In those days, the Muslims were exemplified to the non-Muslims as an accurate usage of the justice. Because in the previous days, the non-Muslims exercised their power unlawfully and unjustifiedly. Their exercise of the power was totally cruelty, aggression, oppression, exploitation. So on the contrary, Islam was to introduce the accurate justice, the peace, the human love, the respect of humanity. Human being was respected by Islam as being human being. So in this surah, the Muslims were directed not to disturb the pilgrims going towards Mecca Sharif. And even the respect of status was a special issue of the surah. Not only the pilgrims going to Mecca Sharif should not be disturbed and should not be teased, but even the animals living in those areas should be respected. Means this is an example which is supposed to be shown to the non-Muslims that, oh non-Muslims, even if you are prevailing on Kaaba Sharif and on the surrounding areas, but you are misusing the power. Now you should check, you should see, you should observe the activities of the Muslims. The Muslims are powerful, they can do nowadays whatever they like, but they are bound by the instructions of Allah. They are not allowed to exceed the limits prescribed by Allah. This is the proper way of life. This is proper way to use the power and to enjoy the sovereignty. You are misusing the sovereignty. You are misusing the power. So it is not a proper way. Muslims were asked to pay the respect to the animals living in those areas. So much so that the birds of prey were not allowed to be hunted. When they are just animals, birds, four-footed animals, cattle-like animals, they are not respectable. But because they are found inside of the prescribed area of sanctuary, protected area of Kaaba Sharif, therefore they should be respected. Understand? You should also know that it is an issue that every respectable person himself is a respectable person. But that respect does not end on that very person, but it goes on that place as well. That place should also be respected. Kaaba Sharif is a place, and its protected area, which is called Imam. In Arabic it would be called Imam, protected area. And sanctuary, Haram Sharif. Sanctuary is translation of Haram Sharif. Sanctuary, protected area are places. They are neither God, nor any component part of God. They are neither prophet, nor any component part of any prophet. But yet they are respected. Why? Because they are relevant with God, with the prophets. Anything attributed, ascribed to God or His highest personalities should be respected. The protected area was just a protected area. This sanctuary was an area, a ground. They are just stones and hilly tracts, mountains, small hills, sands, very small bushes, nothing else. Without water, without greenery, without grass. But yet they are respected. Why? Because they were ascribed to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam went there. To Adam alayhi salam. Because he went there. So when a thing is attributed to the respectable persons, the things should be respected. Not only the things should be respected, but the plants, trees, botanies, herbs. Not only these things, but even the animals, the insects should be respected. Insects are insects. Animals are animals. But yet they are respected because they were ascribed to the pious personalities. Do you understand something?
Yes.
Huh? So nowadays, sometimes a question is raised that such and such person is being respected by the public, by the community. Why so many respect is being paid? So one can conclude from such verses that why such animals are respected. Because they are attributed, they are ascribed, they are fathered with respectable persons. Therefore, the things, the animals, the herbs, the botany, the trees, the stone, the sand, everything should be respected, which was ascribed and fathered and attributed to the respectable persons. When such an animal, stones, and other things are being respected, just because they are ascribed to the pious persons, to the respectable person. So when a person is ascribed in respect of ideology, in respect of blood, in respect of tribe, in respect of caste, in respect of knowledge, in respect of religion, in everything, one is ascribed and attributed to the pious personalities and respectable persons. Why he should not be respected? He is deserving to be respected. So many other issues were also discussed in the surah. This surah says, to believers, sometimes you were aggressed, you were coerced, and you were tortured. And at that time you were injured party. But now the time has come, you can become an injurious party. You can injure them, but you are not allowed to injure them. When you get the power, you will have to forgive. Just like I have got power. Allah says, just like I have got power. I can take the revenge. I can retaliate. But I mostly forgive. Therefore, you will have to forgive. You are not allowed to retaliate, to take the revenge on them. Because you have got godly attributes. Muttasil bi sifatillah, mukhalif bi akhlaq. You have got divine qualities. Because you are very close to me. So, since the setback of Uhud was really a irretrievable harm and damage to the Muslims. In those days, many women experienced the widowism because their husbands were martyred in the Battle of Uhud. Therefore, many rules concerning the widows were also discussed in the surah. And many other laws about the international law also discussed in the surah. And therefore, it starts from here. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu bil uqud. O believers, fulfill the promises, the treaties which are made between two societies, between two communities, or among the all communities, or among the different tribes, are the promises or the treaties made between you and God. All of the treaties and promises should be fulfilled, because it is a sign of hypocrisy not to fulfill the promise. Lord is devoted to have said promises are to be broken, but it can be the reputation of a non-Muslim. As being Muslim, one's duty is to keep promise, whether it is made with the Muslims or the non-Muslims, with the creature or with the Creator. You have got no right to check whether you have made the treaty with the powerful or powerless, but your duty is to check that you are believer. You have got belief. Since you don't want to lose the wealth of belief, therefore you will have to keep the promise, to fulfill the promise, to be abiding by the rules and regulations concerning with the treaty, with the promise, with the covenants. For instance, you have made covenants with Allah, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So this is also a covenant. Means, I have believed in your divinity, in your deity. I believe that you are my God, and I believe Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as my last and final prophet of Allah. So this promulgation, this announcement, a very decisive one, and very conclusive one. If a person pronounces the kalima sharif, it means that he makes an announcement about his being Muslim and about the acceptance of the divine law. So this is a promise. This is why Malad al-Lahori was reported to have said, "So goyamman Musalmanam balarzam kitanam mushkilat la." When I profess that I am Muslim, I begin to tremble. I begin to shiver, because I realize the responsibility of this pronunciation. So this is a great profession. I have professed that I am Muslim. So Muslim is acknowledgement of the totality of Islamic contents of the Holy Quran, the contents of the prophetic traditions. Sometimes one realizes that he is not performing the bad because by means of a treaty one becomes bound. So since I have not performed the bad, I am quite free. I can do whatever I like. But this is wrong idea. Because before the performance of bad with some people, he has performed the bad with Allah and His Apostle. He has announced, he has promulgated, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur. So when a person fulfills the form about the loyalty of the country, one has to be loyal, has to be faithful. One says, I recognize you as my representative. One has to follow him. When one says, I recognize you as my teacher, one has to follow him, to understand him. When one announces that he is taking such and such person, his brother, so he has to consider the formalities concerning the brothers. So when a person announces that he is believing in such and such person as a prophet, so one has to abide by the rules and regulations concerning with the prophethood. The Quran says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu awfu bil uqud. O believers, you will have to fulfill the promises. You will have to abide by the covenants, by the promises you have made between you and somebody else, or between you and God. Both types of the promises are to be kept. So, then the promises were made a title of this surah. Now, the promises begin to be discussed from here. So there are two interpretations of the Muslim commentators about this uqud. Uqud is plural of aqd. Aqd means tie, but metaphorically, figuratively, it is used for the covenant, for the treaty, for any reciprocal promise, bilateral promise. Reciprocal promise or bilateral promise. Promise on the both sides. That should term as by reciprocal promise or bilateral promise, double-sided promise. So it can be between two men, two creatures, or between man and God. But most of the Muslim scholars say that here the promises made between two types of creature were referred to. But the other type of the Muslim commentators are of the opinion that the covenants, the treaties, the promises made between man and God were referred to. But comprehensive scholars say that both types of the promises can be meant here. And this is a comprehensive statement of Muslim commentators. Because both types of the promises were discussed in the contents of the surah. Therefore, this translation can be more comprehensive one. And this surah is named Maida. Maida means tablecloth. Whereon the food is served for the eating. Since there is a verse, perhaps 112, which discuss the tablecloth, means once upon a time, the followers of and disciples, the direct disciples of Jesus asked him to ask Allah to reveal, to send down a tablecloth with the furnished and served food. So according to his request, it was done. So therefore, this surah was named after that event. Like many other surahs, this name was taken by the surah just for the identification, but nothing else is concerned with this name. Maida means the tablecloth. Since only tablecloth was mentioned as an event which was came to existence according to the request of Jesus Christ, therefore it was named this surah after that event. Since now time has ended, therefore it is postponed for the next meeting, inshallah, on the coming meeting. With much importance, this surah will be discussed. Therefore, we should come in full number and with the punctuality and regularity. I shall try my best to make you understand the contents of the surah very completely, so that you will be able to deal with the daily affairs and the activities which are exercised between two different persons or two different communities. This is the end of my lecture today on the surah. Now I would like you to have any question relevant with my speech. It would be appreciated. Do you like my writing? No question. Do you like?
Yes.
No question.
Some non-Muslims don't believe life after death.
Yes. So this question is not relevant with my this lecture, but as far as the non-Muslims belief is concerned, that they are not believing in the life hereinafter. This is called eschatology in English. They don't believe in eschatology. They don't believe in eschatology. Means to die and then to be revived and then to be accused in the court of Allah and then to be judged by Allah and then to be put to the paradise or in the hell and then to be granted some bounties or to be penalized. So these all issues are called eschatology. This science is called eschatology in English. So the people of Mecca also did not believe in the in eschatology, but many references are made about this one. First of all, Allah said, you see that there is no sign of any botany, any grass, any herb on the earth. The land is totally dead, but you see that the water is sent down on the earth, and earth is revived. Many grass, many green leaves are found there. So this is a daily experience about the revival. You see the earth is dead, but after its death, the earth is revived just to make you understand that revival is possible. And then you daily experience that the human being is created from a drop of water, and a drop of water is totally dead, and it is put in the womb of mother, and after a few months it assumes the form of a baby. So this is a conclusive evidence for the revival of a human being, because the God who can make a man from nothing. So dead body is not nothing, is something. When he can create something from nothing, he can do something from something. Understand?